The world's most valuable company, Apple, is being sued by Democratic Republic of Congo. The tech giant's accused of using illegally mined minerals in products like iPhones sold worldwide. Apple denies the claim. What's behind this legal action? This is Inside Story. Hello again, I'm James Bays. This is one of the most successful consumer products of all time, the Apple iPhone, but now it's at the centre of a lawsuit over some of the materials used to make it. Apple is being sued by Democratic Republic of Congo, or DRC, over claims that it uses illegally mined minerals in iPhones, iPads and other products it sells around the world. The company denies those allegations and said this week it's told suppliers they mustn't use such minerals sourced from the DRC or Rwanda. The DRC's lawyers claim that Apple is complicit in criminal activity by using minerals, quote, pillaged from the DRC and laundered through international supply chains. Years of conflict in mining areas in eastern DRC have led to millions of people being killed or forced to leave their homes. Armed groups have used income from mining to buy weapons and are accused of using children in mines and carrying out human rights abuses. Apple insists in official filings with US authorities it rigorously audits its suppliers and has dropped those who don't comply. So why is this action being taken now and how might it play out? We'll get to those issues with our guests in a moment, but first this report from Katia Lopez-Hodoyan.
Mining in the Democratic Republic of Congo is big business. Many of the minerals used to make computers and mobile phones sold around the world are found here. The industry has long been profitable, but also controversial. Now tech giant Apple is part of that controversy. Criminal complaints have been filed against its subsidiaries in France and Belgium, with the DRC accusing the tech giant of knowingly buying minerals gathered through illegal means in conflict zones. Apple denies the accusations. In a statement, it says, as conflict in the region escalated earlier this year, we notified our suppliers that their smelters and refiners must suspend sourcing tin, tantalum, tungsten, and gold from the DRC and Rwanda. Competition for minerals is one of the main drivers of conflict in the DRC. Since the 1990s, the mining heartlands in the east have been devastated by fighting between armed groups, some allegedly backed by neighboring Rwanda and the Congolese military. Rights groups say some artisanal mines are run by armed groups involved in massacres of civilians, rapes, looting, and other crimes. Thousands of civilians have been forced from their homes. Armed groups have long been accused of fighting for control of mines and using profits to finance their operations. And analysts say fighting is likely to continue as long as there is demand. Katia Lopez-Hodoyan, Al Jazeera, for Inside Story.
Well, let's discuss this further and bring in our guest today. In London, we have Robert Amsterdam, an international lawyer who's representing the Democratic Republic of Congo in this case. In Goma, in eastern DRC, Alain Uaykani is a journalist who's covered the conflict for more than 15 years. And in Cape Town in South Africa, Gregory Mthembu-Salter is a consultant who specialises in natural resource government and served on the UN group of experts for the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, you'll see we don't have anyone representing Apple today on our panel. We reached out to Apple, but they have not responded to us. Let me start with you, Robert. You are the lawyer in this case for the Democratic Republic of Congo. Apple denies all your allegations, but explain to me, why has the country decided to bring this case now?
Well, essentially, Apple's behavior and the activity that Apple engages in is what we allege funds the rebels inside the Congo. We, on behalf of the government, are looking at the funding of the rebellion that is going on, sponsored by Rwanda. And essentially, the allegation that Apple is in any way unaware would have to mean that a $1 trillion company hasn't bothered to read any UN reports that have come out in the last decade and a half. There is simply the defense of ignorance does not work in this situation. And the government of the Congo, having not been contacted by Apple after we sent letters in April of this year setting out in detail our complaints, felt that there was absolutely no other choice but to open up a large number of legal actions.
Let's look at some of the things that we're going to be talking about, so everyone is aware of some of the issues involved. And Gregory, I'd like to start with you. Let's talk about these minerals that are used ultimately when eventually they're put into a mobile phone. They're called the 3T minerals. Just explain what we're talking about here.
So the 3Ts are tungsten, tin and tantalum. Now, tin gets used for a lot more things than mobile phones, but it is used in making the circuit boards. And coltan, or Colombo tantalite, which is the form in which the tantalum comes, is a superconductor. It conducts large amounts of electric pulses.
So coltan is the ore. Coltan's the ore.
Yes.
Is that right? Yes. Okay.
Coltan is the ore.
So we're going to hear both of those terms in this discussion. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So and Congo, and to a lesser extent Rwanda, has a large percentage of the world's resource base of tantalum.
Okay, Alain, I think we also now, many viewers to Al Jazeera will be aware of this, but you also need to give the context in terms of the DRC, your country. You are a journalist there. You were once forced to be a child soldier. The figures no one's been counting properly, but since 1998, more than 6 million people have died as a result of the conflict, not all of them directly from the war, but from hunger and disease. Just tell us how bad the conflict has been in your country and how it is still continuing right now.
Thank you very much, James, for having me in this program. Yeah, for sure, the conflict is still very bad. When you are talking about myself, this is a guy, a boy who was born and grown up in the conflict, and went to school in the same situation and became a journalist covering almost 15 years today, the same conflict. Thousands of people, life being destroyed, child like me, with whom we served together in the different conflicts, in the different areas. Those who could not have the same chance to go back to school like me still continue, or some are even in the army, still coming years and years, and we are in the same situation right now. For example, here in Goma, where I am, we have almost 4 million of people around this town, and the majority of them are coming from these areas where people were pushed out, and now when we are talking about minerals, all those areas are under the control of militia. It's showing the scale of the situation in which we are living in right now here in the eastern of DRC.
And Alain, I mean, we hear of crimes and atrocities over the years: murder, assault, torture, rape. Those things are still going on a daily basis, yes?
This is the same situation, James. I've been going daily or weeks or a month in the camp. You have the report when you are talking to women, those in charge of monitoring the situation of rape, for example. Women in the camp, for example, around Goma here, we have at least 80 women raped every week, not because they are now in the armed or the place where the war is still going on, but because these people, they need to survive. They have to leave the camp in the morning, going to search for the firewood, for example, or the vegetables around, or even the bush meats. These are the women, every day they are either raped by the armed groups right now, pushed by the rebellion, some of the strongest sides, and those rebels now are also around the camps, around the city. So these women, they are sometimes in the ambush of the same guys, pretending fighting for them, but being raped by the same people. So every day when you are going to the camp, when you are asking these people, the team of monitoring, saying, I want to talk to the raped women, They're coming, thousands of them. Each of them want to tell you the story. Each of them want to tell you how she was raped in the camp, for example, because she still doesn't have shelters. Maybe they ran away from their villages last week and they need the shelters. They still don't have. And it's raining every day here. Even right now, as I'm talking to you, it's raining. And then imagine the life of 4 million of people without shelters around this town. So you have the story of like this every day around this town, and it's showing, even as I said before, the scale of the violence which still continue in the last 20 years. I'm talking 20 years because it's almost 15 years that I'm covering these stories, and it's the same story. It's never changed. It's going daily basis here.
Okay, let me bring in Gregory. Link for me those armed groups to the minerals. I know that in a moment Robert will want to link those minerals to the mobile phone supply chain in his lawsuit, but can you explain to me why these armed groups and the minerals are linked and how it all works and how the proceeds of minerals are funding this war?
Yeah, sure. You have a number of mineral deposits all over East Congo, which are accessible by artisanal miners. That is, miners who, work with their hands and picks and shovels, and they don't really have any much machinery. Now, armed groups, if they're controlling that territory, they want to extract what you might call rents from these mines. Maybe on the routes out, they put up a barrier and they claim they get a tax, or they take a percentage of the bags, or it might be that the commander says, okay, on this day of the week, everybody's working for me, or he's got some pits in the area which his soldiers, his troops are operating. I should say, the Congolese army's been involved in this too. A number of groups with weapons, whether they're state or anti-state, have practiced the same process. So that's why this whole idea about due diligence came about. That we were saying when I was on the UN, we were saying to companies, you have to understand your supply chains, because these are the routes by which these minerals are going from these mines out. Along the way, these actors are taking money off them and using that to finance their conflict. Now, I should just say at this point that it doesn't mean that if that stopped, the conflict would stop. This is a really important point. These armed groups collect revenues off all kinds of things. They collect revenue off the trade in timber, off cannabis, off charcoal. But the reason we focused on minerals is because that's the one that has an international supply chain. That's the one that ends up with global buyers. But there was a recent US Government Accountability Office report that kind of lamented the US legislation to stop companies buying minerals that have financed conflict had not stopped the conflict. And I was amazed, because even they had misunderstood it, that it just takes away that source of revenue.
Okay, well, I'm going to bring in Robert in a second to explain why your claim is alleging that is linked directly to Apple and their iPhones. But before I bring you in, Robert, let me just tell you what Apple is saying, because they have issued a statement. They say, as conflict in the region escalated earlier this year, we notified our suppliers that their smelters and refiners must suspend sourcing tin, tantalum, tungsten and gold from the DRC and Rwanda. We took this action because we were concerned it was no longer possible for independent auditors or industry certification mechanisms to perform the due diligence required to meet our high standards. Robert, that's the statement from Apple. Explain to me what you make of that statement, because my understanding is that statement came out after you submitted your suit both to the authorities in France and Belgium.
Yes, and to be very frank with you, that statement comes out after, when responding to our notices in April that we were going to go ahead, Apple wrote to us and said nothing of the sort. They said they gave us some inane comments about how they comply with human rights, and basically just tossed our request into the garbage, didn't bother to speak to the government. And then all of a sudden, it appears to be that they've found the light. It changes the entire dynamics of mineral extraction in this region, because they are certifying that they can't tell where the minerals are coming from. They are basically admitting that the schemes, the fraudulent schemes that have existed under the brand Itssky or others, simply don't carry any water. And when you see our colleague talk about what's going on in the Congo, and then you read Apple's statements about how they're sustainable and how they care about the environment, and you hear about these mass rapes and murders going on, whatever Apple's relationship is, and we now know very clearly what it is, how dare they not get involved, roll up their sleeves years ago and try to come to an understanding with their trillions of dollars of revenue as to what role they can play in mitigation.
OK, well, I think it's fair to say I would like to ask him those questions. I'd like to ask anyone from Apple those questions. A reminder, we did ask Apple to take part in this programme. They would have had a seat on this panel, but they have not responded to any of our queries. Robert, I think it's worth, though, focusing a little bit more on that statement from them. They say earlier this year we notified our suppliers. We have no idea at all when they were notified. Will you be now trying to seek more information?
Are you kidding? They wrote to us in June, and they never mentioned this decision. So it is very clear to me that this decision is very current and directly related to the actions my firm and others have taken. And it's shameful. Again, it is an incredible level of arrogance that we see Western companies continuously engage in when it comes to the Congo or Africa, and it has to stop. The supply chain abuse has to stop. Apple needs to understand that given its size and scope, no one buys a supply chain defense. Nobody accepts that these companies that operate under them are fully independent.
Can I just get in there? You go Apple, 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 and your lawsuits are against Apple in 2 countries. Why are you focusing only on Apple? Are you picking on Apple because they are, by value, the world's largest company? Or do you believe that they are the only one that you allege is responsible for this?
Apple, in their literature, are probably the only tech company that speaks to human rights the way that they do. And I think when a company presents itself as close to God, as believing in sustainability, as placing the environment uppermost in their minds, then they should be the first to have to address their behavior and be held accountable. And they require accountability. And what they've just admitted today is a statement that will rock the rest of the tech industry.
But Robert, is it Apple's duty to know what its suppliers have been doing? What if they have been misled by their suppliers?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Let's be really clear. You're a $4 trillion company and you're obtaining resources from a war zone. You're darn right it's your duty. Forget your duty as a human being. Forget your duty as a global citizen. It is your absolute duty to ensure that what goes into your products is not produced by child labor, slave labor, not involved in supporting rape and mass murder. That's your job.
OK, let me bring in Gregory. We heard Robert there talk about Itssky. There was a whole focus on this more than a decade ago to have a system in place. What is your view of this system that was put in place?
So, yeah, we have to talk about Itssky. So this was a system that was set up by the ITRI, the International Tin Association, in association with the Tantalum Association, to come up with a system that would trace and, using a tagging system, identify exactly where minerals had come from, so that refineries and then end users beyond them could have assurance that the minerals they've purchased had not financed conflict. Now, over the years, the credibility of this system has come under increasing attack, not least by the UN group of experts on the Congo. And in April 2022, Global Witness produced a report called the Itssky Laundromat that kind of explained how minerals were being smuggled across from Congo and then given tags from Rwandan mines and then exported as Rwandan and therefore conflict-free because there's no war in Rwanda. So that report was out there, and this is where I think, I mean, I won't comment on the merits exactly of this case, but I can say that in the due diligence system that Apple and others are signed up to, which is designed by the OECD, part of due diligence is that you respond appropriately to new information when it comes to light. And these UN reports, and particularly this Global Witness report, really laid it out. It was, I should say, completely denied, and it continues to be denied by Itssky. So that was out there, but we didn't really see a response. We didn't see a change in sourcing practice from the downstream. And I think Apple is not alone in that. Now, then what happened is Rubaya, which is the world's richest coltan mine, which is in North Kivu, was captured by the M23. And that's a rebel movement, Congo-based rebel movement, that has the group of experts and pretty much everyone else has shown has strong support from the Rwandan government, is militarily assisted by the Rwandan army and has had Rwandan troops deployed to assist it too. Now, at that point, the coltan from Rubaya started going out under the control of M23 into Rwanda, and was then, we think, we can't prove it because we haven't been, these processing companies haven't sort of opened up themselves to us, but mixed up with Rwandan stuff and then exported off to tantalum refiners in China. So
okay, it's worth adding there, Gregory, because I'm having to represent some of the people that aren't on the panel today, that Rwanda also denies those allegations. Bringing it back to Goma and Alain, I'd like to know what people there, are people following these allegations in this lawsuit against Apple? And as you listen to Robert, the lawyer, his passion and his sincerity, and do people share that the sincerity of the government that is bringing this case? Because, of course, the DRC, as you know, living there, is one of the most corrupt countries on earth. Transparency International, the NGO, says 162nd out of 180 countries in terms of its corruption. Even if this court case won and he won damages from Apple, are you confident the DRC would do the right thing with them?
This is exactly what people are aware here, and people are asking the same question as me, because they are saying, how is the DRC may be able to prove that these minerals, which is crossing Rwanda, because I have to remind James Bay, here in Goma, for example, we have a legal, I personally discussed with one of the high personality in charge of putting the tag, for example, on the minerals here in Goma. All minerals leaving Goma going to Rwanda are not necessarily, I'm talking as a journalist, not necessarily as illegal. There is a body here in charge of putting tags, for example, even before the M23 taking the control of the minerals, for example, the minerals was coming in the context called Pekorama. There is a body in charge of clearing minerals and sending the minerals on the international market.
Okay.
And for people in Goma,
thank you for that clarification, Alain. Robert, if I can bring you in now at the end, you are bringing this action. Some might say that you're bringing it in two jurisdictions which might be favourable to you, in France and Belgium. Is that the end of your legal process? Because my understanding is you are the lawyer for the Democratic Republic of Congo, dealing with other parts of the world. Could there be more? Could there even be a case in the United States?
Listen, we are closing no doors. The government has decided that they will take this on forever. This involves the very sovereignty of the country. The president is very sincere about ensuring that these lawsuits benefit the very victims that he represents. And that's why he's doing this.
Well, thank you very much for all our guests today. We were joined by Gregory Mthembu-Salter, Alain Uaykani and Robert Amsterdam. Remember, you can always catch this programme every day on television on our phone app or at aljazeera.com. We also want to hear from you. What do you think? What did you like? What did you not like? Go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story, or post your thoughts on X. Find us at AJ Inside Story. I'm James Bayes, and I'll be back here very soon. Until then, from all the team here in Doha, stay safe. Bye-bye for now.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.